This evening, I'm going to provide you with a quick recap of the other two sessions on the state funding formula and the tax structure before we jump into expenses, just to help you kind of draw those connections. And then this session will primarily focus on expenses, however, and how we currently allocate resources. With a focus on how the district spends its money and kind of why we do that, and how we compare to other districts and why it's important. This graph illustrates the source of the district's funding. The restricted state grants and aid, that's this portion here, and the state grants and aid. These two combine to make up like 56% of the district's general fund operating revenue. This is followed by the general property tax. And this is generated by levies that have been passed throughout the years. And then there's the property tax allocation. The best way to think of this is the portion of local taxes paid by the state. So the state offers a homestead and rollback exemptions, and then they pay those dollars to the districts. And so that's what this property tax allocation portion is. Reynoldsburg has a levy for income on, it's a school district levy on the income of residents of Reynoldsburg that makes up approximately 7% of the district's revenue. And then the other sources of revenue include tax increment financing, or TIFs. You may be familiar with the Taylor Square shopping plaza and the Home Depot. The district receives TIFs on or payments to the district in lieu of the taxes that those organizations would have to pay. So they've been given tax cuts, and the district receives that portion from the city. And then there are other things, our rental revenue, proceeds that we may earn as a district on items that we sell, so like school buses, that sort of thing that we're getting rid of. So in a previous session, I talked about the state funding formula kind of being a hybrid approach. This illustrates a very simplistic view of how the funding formula works. The base cost, which I've updated this slide, the base cost is the amount that the state says it costs to educate a student in Reynoldsburg. So this number is different for every district. The state determines this by calculating how much it costs to have like a superintendent, principal, teacher, counselors, etc. Specific to Reynoldsburg. This amount was recently updated in the funding formula to include 2022 costs. It was previously at 2018, and it does take a legislative act, which this year was passed with the biennium budget. So House Bill 187 did include a provision to update these costs to 2022. And I've linked here, which we'll post this presentation, but I've linked here in case you want all of the detail of how the base cost is calculated. That is here for you. Also, our payment report that we get a state payment every or twice a month, and this tells you how they come up with these numbers. The local capacity is in the formula represents the amount that the district can afford to pay towards the education of the students in the district. It does so by using the district's property valuation and local income tax, which is updated annually. So I say afford with little quotes because it's based on the value of what you own, so your property, not necessarily what you can afford to pay. And then just keep in mind that there was a reappraisal, which I'm sure you've heard about, if not personally receiving a letter from board meetings where we discussed this, the 5-year forecast, but the 2023 reappraisal does impact those numbers. And so in effect makes the district appear wealthier. So this is a report from Franklin County. This report shows our voted rate and effective rate on our current millage. House Bill 920, which was passed in 1976, was a law that forces districts to continue to go to the ballot in order to increase local property tax revenue. This is because as the property value changes, the effective rate on voted millage is adjusted to ensure that a taxing district does not collect any more funds than was authorized to be collected at the time of passage. And as you can see here, the district's effective rate on residential and agricultural property in Reynoldsburg taxing district is collectively this 21.79 mils, if you round it up. And then it was originally voted 53.4 mils in total. And then on the other side of that, the commercial and industrial property is effectively taxed at 30.78 mils. It's what we're receiving on what was voted. So it's been reduced significantly from the 53.4 mils. And this reduction factor is why districts have to continue to ask their residents for more funds via levy. Typically, you see that every 3 or 4 years.